everybody, and welcome to the Knotted Noose episode 1. My name is Cassandra, and I am your host. And our first case is a local one for me. It takes place in Portland, Oregon, where on a warm day on June 4th, 2010, a young boy goes missing. And 12 years later, his disappearance still remains a mystery. What would follow would ensue in Oregon's largest criminal investigation ever, to this day. Today, while I'm talking about this case with you all, I'm going to be working on my Lamia shawl by Tony Lipsy over at TL Yarn Crafts. This is Tunisian crochet, so it's kind of like a mixture between, I like to say crochet and knit because it's kind of hard to explain it a little bit. But if you're interested in learning how to Tunisian crochet, Tony's great. That's where I learned how to do this. It's a free pattern on her website. And this is Malabrigio Rios hand-dyed yarn in the colorway Playa. So this is what I'm going to be working on while we talk about Kyron. So Kyron Horman was born on September 9th, 2002 to his parents Desiree Young and Kane Horman. 8 months into Desiree's pregnancy, though, they would end up getting a divorce and were both awarded with joint custody of Kyron. But unfortunately, in 2004, Desiree would be diagnosed with kidney failure, and she would be unable to take care of Kyron in the full capacity that he needed. So treatment for kidney failure is very extensive, usually involving a lot of dialysis treatments, and sometimes even a kidney donor is needed. So she ended up giving sole custody to Kane, although she was still very much a part of Kyron's life. In 2007, Kane married Terry Moulton. Sorry, that just did not want to come out of my mouth. Terry Moulton, although it was alleged that he had been romantically involved with Terry during Desiree's pregnancy. So there's a little, that's kind of like a he said, she said kind of thing, but it is worth noting in this case. In 2008, Kyron became a big brother to his half-sister, Kiara. Those that knew Kyron said that he was very shy, but he was extremely intelligent. And he had a love for CSI. That year at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, they actually had a crime scene investigation forensics display, and Kyron was said to have loved this. And it kind of, between that and Dexter, which his parents watched often, is what jump-started his CSI addiction, I guess you could say. He probably would have been a really great true crimer someday. On June 4th, 2010, was the beginning of Skyline Elementary School's science fair. Something to note about Skyline Elementary School is that it's kind of in the middle of a forest. When people think Portland, they think city. While this is technically Portland, it is kind of up in the hills where there's a lot of forest area, and it's not as populated. There's a lot of farm towns in the area and things like that. And Kyron had done a project on red-eyed tree frogs for the science fair that year. And he usually took the school bus, but on this specific day, Terry had taken him to school. And something that is worth noting about that is Terry took Kane's car, which it was actually a truck, a Ford F-150 which she was said to have never done before, because Kane had actually bought her a brand new red Mustang as a Mother's Day gift in 2007. So she never drove his truck. She would later claim that day that she drove his truck because she thought that she had to take the science fair project home. But the science fair was running that whole week, actually. So there is that. They arrived at the school around 8 a.m. and Kyron had dropped off his book bag and his jacket in his first class for the day before going to the gymnasium to show his science fair project to his stepmother and his little sister. Terry claims that she had left the school around 8:45 a.m., where she proceeded to drive to a Fred Meyer in Hillsborough. Now, she says that she drove here because apparently Kiara had an ear infection, and she thought that the prescription had been sent to this Fred Meyer, but it had actually been sent to a Fred Meyer in Beaverton, which is about, it just depending on where you're at, it's 20 minutes or so. So there is receipt proof that she did buy some stuff at this Hillsborough Fred Meyer at 9:12 a.m. She then went to the Fred Meyer in Beaverton and picked up the prescription, and she then ran miscellaneous errands in the area until about 10. Like, she stopped at Michael's, and there was one other place that she had stopped, and after that she claims that Kiara's ear was really bothering her, and she had said that the driving calmed her down somehow, like alleviated the pain. So she said that she was driving for 90 minutes. So an hour and a half she was driving, trying to wait for the medicine, her prescription medication, to kick in. After that, she checks in at a 24-hour fitness at 11:39 a.m., where she stayed for an hour before she claims to have headed home. At 3:30, Kane and Terry and Kiara went to the bus stop to go and pick up Kyron. Only Kyron wasn't on the bus. In fact, he had been marked absent from his classes all day. The secretary was then prompted to call 911 by the bus driver. Something I find interesting about this is, why weren't his parents notified that he wasn't at school that day? So, like, in 2010, I was a freshman in high school, and I just think that it's interesting because if I missed like a single class, the school was calling and being like, Cassandra was absent from class today. And it's kind of just one of those things that make you go, like, why, if he was absent all day, not a single person thought to call his parents and say, hey, he's not here. But I digress. Kyron's mother, Desiree, was notified by the school that, notified by the school that her son was missing, and immediately got her husband, Tony Young, and began the 4.5-hour journey from Medford, Oregon. Tony was actually a detective himself, although it appears that he tried to remain as unbiased in this investigation as possible. Like, it really seemed like he didn't want to interfere with anything. It was said that he had known, like, a couple of the police officers from, like, his days at the academy and whatnot. But, like I said, he, for the most part, was unbiased. And when they had arrived at Kane and Terry's home, Terry was unusually cheery. She was described as unusually cheery and happy, considering that her stepson was missing. And Tony did find this a little bit suspicious, but he tried to withhold judgment because everybody reacts to stressors and, things like that in different ways, so it's kind of hard to judge, but it's a little weird. What was to follow after all of this would be the largest search and rescue that Oregon had ever seen. It would cover a 2-mile radius around his school in Savi's Island, which is like an island. It's not really. It's an island, but it's not. I don't even really know how to explain that, but it's a lot of farmland as well that's across the river from the school. There were 300 trained individuals and 1,300 searchers with absolutely no sign of Kyron Horman. Immediately, people were suspicious of Terry. She was very cheery and upbeat following Kyron's disappearance, and she was supposedly the last person to have seen Kyron alive. And she also had a chunk of time in her recount of that day where she had no alibi. That hour and a half in between running errands and getting to the gym, she had no one to say, like, yeah, I saw her, she was here. So people immediately were like jumping on that, like, what was she doing for that hour and a half? She would later also go on to fail 2 polygraph tests, which, as we know, aren't necessarily like, they're not used in court for a reason. There's just a lot of different factors, but it's worth noting that she failed 2 polygraph tests. After 10 days of Kyron's being missing, his case was switched from a missing persons case to a full-blown criminal investigation. In July, a man actually showed up at the police station. He was a landscaper that Terry had hired previously, and he claimed that Terry had hired him 6 months before Kyron's disappearance and offered him money to kill Kane. Which, right after Kane was made aware of this, he immediately filed for divorce. He got a restraining order, and that is one of the big points that people think that Terry could possibly be involved with Kyron. But there are a few other theories that are interesting and worth noting. One of these theories is kind of goes in hand with the school not mentioning his absence. There was some speculation, and I just want to say this is alleged. Like, I haven't really been able to find very much news coverage on this, but there was some speculation that Kyron could have been sexually abused, as it was said that he started to have behavioral issues at school. Is it possible that he could have been groomed by somebody at the school? Things were already super wild around there with the science fair. Like, there was a lot of people coming in and out, friends, family. Like, I'm not really sure what the safety would have been back then for strangers coming in the school. It could have just been a wrong person, wrong time situation. There's also a theory that his stepmother sold him into human trafficking. Theory that she just didn't like him, and so she got rid of him. But the lack of evidence that they've been able to find on this case is just really eerie, because this kid just vanished from a school. And there's people that say that they saw him walking towards his first class of the day. There's people that say they saw him walking towards the exit of the building that morning. So where did he go? It's been 12 years since Kyron disappeared, and we still don't have any answers. Although the Multnomah County Sheriff's Department claims that this is still an active investigation, and they get hundreds of tips every month. So, I mean, with all the forensic technology that we have now, and DNA testing, and everything like that, I mean, could we finally solve this case that rocked so many? It's just the whole state of Oregon, the community was distraught looking for this boy, because you think that you're sending your kids to school and that they're safe and that they're going to be okay. And we're starting to realize in this day and age that really isn't the reality for our kids. What we had growing up is just not how it's going to be for this next generation, unfortunately. So if you have any information on Kyron, please contact the Multnomah County Sheriff's Department. It would be amazing to see this case solved. I'm hopeful in my lifetime, especially since it's one that's so close. It would just be amazing if he were alive out there somewhere. Police don't seem to believe that he is alive anymore. I don't know what evidence they have that makes them believe that, but yeah. So thank you for joining me for today's episode of the Knotted Noose. And I will see you all in a couple of weeks with another case. Bye!